What is to be done about Jihadi Jack? That's probably how you know the British-Canadian man who went to fight with ISIS and is now in prison in Syria. Well, the UK has stripped him of his citizenship there. So where does that leave Canada? With sole responsibility? Renee Filippone is following the story, and she's in London today.
Well, Jack's father, John, has been pleading with the UK government, Heather, for some time to help his son since he was captured by Kurdish forces in 2017. And today he continues with his criticism, saying that this move means the British government is shirking its responsibility. Now, Jack left for Syria in 2014 to join ISIS, and he has admitted in the past that he's not innocent, but believes he should be prosecuted in the UK and not Syria. Now, John, his father, is Canadian, and that's why Jack has citizenship in Canada. Have a listen to what John told the CBC.
I would be very happy if Jack went to Canada. If he's done something wrong, I'm sure the Canadian justice system can find a way of finding the truth from the mistruth and punish him if he's done something wrong. And then he can redeem himself and help. You know, he's seen a lot of horrors. He's anti-ISIS. He's anti-extremist. And let him help.
Now, the UK government is not commenting on this directly, but they did issue a statement about the ability to revoke citizenship, saying that this power is one way we can counter the terrorist threat posed by some of the most dangerous individuals and to keep our country safe.
Given those moves from the UK, what now are we seeing and hearing on the Canadian side of this story, Renee?
Well, Heather, the Canadian government has made it clear that they're disappointed by this move. And under international law, a country can only strip someone of their citizenship if it doesn't leave them stateless. So the Canadian government says at this point, you know, they're not going to do anything to try to bring him to Canada. But if he did end up here, there is actually little they could do to prosecute him for what he is accused of while being part of ISIS. Have a listen to this Canadian expert in international affairs.
There's crimes in the criminal code for leaving Canada to facilitate terrorist activity or to commit offense on behalf of a terrorist organization. Letts is not, doesn't fall within that category. He's not susceptible to prosecution for this offense because he did not leave Canada.
So the issue there, Heather, being he left for Syria from the UK, not Canada. Therefore, Canada can't prosecute. Now, Canadian MP John McKay was a guest on the BBC Radio morning show today, saying this move by the British government is gutless and that it's not the way two allies should be treating each other.
That is Renee Filippone on the story in London. Now, we also spoke about this issue with Sharry Aiken, who's a law professor at Queen's University in Kingston, specializing in immigration and citizenship. And I asked her, and she answered the whole issue of Canada's responsibilities in terms of what the options are, what the obligations are for Canada now that the UK has stripped Jack Letts of his citizenship.
In terms of a right to return to Canada, well, every citizen has a right to enter and remain in Canada. That's a Charter of Rights enshrined basic right. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that Canada's obliged to give him a passport.
So
I would.
So if I can look at what Ralph Goodale said and we can parse the words, there is no legal obligation to facilitate his return. Technically, that is correct under the law.
He can technically, to a certain extent. It's a little bit gray in the sense that Canada's not permitted to abandon its citizens. Canada is required under international law, Vienna Convention of long-standing precedent, to provide support to Canadian citizens who are detained abroad.
So when a Canadian citizen commits a crime abroad and is deported, Canada has an obligation to accept. Is this a similar situation, or is there something different about the particularities of this particular case?
Well, the specific issue here is that Mr. Letts doesn't actually have a passport at the moment, right? And so unlike people who have a passport and who, when they are released, can hope to return to Canada, Mr. Letts doesn't have a passport. And I would say that that's what's distinctive. And I would say the answer to that is to provide him with an emergency travel document. Canada doesn't have to go so far as to agree to issue a passport, should we not want to. But we should be, if Mr. Letts can get out of detention, I would suggest issuing him a temporary travel document, facilitating his return to Canada, and prosecuting him if indeed there's a case. That's what I would say would be the best way to wage war against terrorism.
That is Queen's University law professor Sharry Aiken.